They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but I discovered it's actually best served at your own wedding, while your sister thinks she's the only bride in the room. My name is Maya Rodriguez, and the night I was supposed to fade into the background became the moment I stepped into the spotlight I'd been building in secret for years. Picture this: Portland's most exclusive rooftop venue, two weddings happening simultaneously, and a family who had no idea their quiet daughter was actually the city's most sought-after event mastermind. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it all started. In a house where being invisible was my superpower, until I decided to make it my weapon. Growing up in our tight-knit Mexican-American family in Portland's Alberta district, I was always Sophia's older sister, never Maya, never the one with her own identity. Sophia, my younger sister by 2 years, was the Instagram sensation with 800,000 followers, turning our family kitchen into a backdrop for lifestyle content that made suburban moms weep with envy. Her ring light lived permanently on our dining table, and family dinners were scheduled around her posting times. Meanwhile, I was the one Mom introduced as our practical daughter code for the one who doesn't make us money or bring us social media clout. When Sophia got a brand partnership with a major beauty company, Dad threw a barbecue and invited the whole neighborhood. When I won a prestigious design award for my college portfolio, they said, "That's nice, mija. But can you eat awards?" I learned early to smile through it, to nod when they gushed over Sophia's latest sponsored post, while my graphic design projects got a distracted glance. But what they didn't know was that by age 25, I had built something extraordinary in the shadows, something that would eventually make their jaws drop and their assumptions crumble like stale churros. Midnight events. That was my secret empire, the most exclusive underground event company on the West Coast, throwing parties so elite that tech billionaires begged for invites, warehouse raves that made Rolling Stone, gallery openings that had celebrities flying in from LA, private concerts where Grammy winners performed for crowds of 50. My designs were the stuff of legend, but to my family, I was just Maya who plays around with art. The thing about being underestimated is that it gives you incredible freedom to build. While Sophia was performing her life for the camera, I was creating experiences that money couldn't buy, only connections, taste, and a password whispered in the right ear. My client list read like a who's who of Pacific Northwest power players, but they knew me only as Al Rodriguez, the mysterious founder who never appeared at her own events. Last August, during our family's traditional weekend barbecue, Sophia stood up in her perfectly curated sundress, her engagement ring catching the string lights Dad had hung haphazardly across our patio. "Diego proposed," she announced, her voice carrying that practiced influencer cadence that made everything sound like branded content. Diego, her tech entrepreneur boyfriend, grinned like he'd just launched a unicorn startup. The yard erupted. Mom dropped her plate of carnitas. Dad started calculating venue costs out loud, and our cousins were already positioning themselves for the perfect group selfie. I clapped along, my smile as genuine as I could make it, waiting for the chaos to settle. Then I cleared my throat. "Actually, I'm engaged too. Marcus proposed last month. We're thinking this fall." The silence was deafening. Even the neighbor's dog stopped barking. Mom's fork hovered halfway to her mouth. Dad's beer can paused at his lips. Sophia shot me a look not malicious, just confused, like I was a background character who'd suddenly started speaking. "Oh, Maya," Mom said finally, her voice taking on that tone reserved for children who'd interrupted adult conversations. "That's wonderful, mija. You'll want something small, right? You've never been one for all the drama. Let's not overshadow Sophia's moment." That night, sitting cross-legged on my apartment floor, with my laptop glowing, I opened a new project file. I typed, "Operation Spotlight," and stared at those two words for a long time. They thought I'd settle for a backyard gathering while Sophia got the fairy tale? They had no idea what the quiet one was capable of. I owned Cascade Gardens, the most coveted private venue in Portland, a glass-walled oasis nestled in the hills, with a view that made grown men cry. My family didn't know I owned it. Hell, they didn't even know Midnight Events was mine, but they were about to learn what happens when the shadow decides to step into the light. The next morning, I called my team. Isabella, my right-hand planner, who could orchestrate miracles with her eyes closed, and a crew of freelancers who'd follow me into creative mayhem without question. We met at Midnight Events headquarters, a converted warehouse in the Pearl District that looked abandoned from the outside, but housed an operation more sophisticated than most Fortune 500 companies. "We're planning 2 weddings," I announced, spreading blueprints across our conference table. One for Sophia, loud, public, Instagram ready. The other for a private client, codename Operation Spotlight. No names, no leaks, total discretion. Isabella raised an eyebrow, but didn't push. She knew that look in my eyes, the one that meant I was about to move mountains with my fingertips. We mapped it out like a military operation. Sophia's wedding would be a spectacle at the historic evergreen ballroom chandeliers, a 12-tier cake, and a custom hashtag that would trend for weeks. Mine would be an intimate masterpiece at Cascade Gardens, under hand-strung Edison bulbs and wild jasmine, where the city skyline would serve as my backdrop, and my family would be guests, not hosts. They wouldn't know I was a bride until I was ready to reveal it. The planning became my sanctuary. I spent nights sketching lighting designs, curating playlists that told stories, hand-selecting flowers that would bloom at exactly the right moment. Sophia's wedding got every detail she dreamed of. I made sure of that, because even in my rebellion, I wasn't cruel. But Operation Spotlight? That got my soul. I designed a living archway of cascading greenery, handwritten vows in gold ink, and a string quartet that would play acoustic versions of the songs that soundtracked my secret empire. My dress wasn't a designer gown. It was a vintage piece I'd found in a thrift shop in the Mission District, altered to perfection by my own hands. Simple, elegant, and unapologetically mine. Abuela Carmen was the only one who understood. She lived in a small house in Woodstock, filled with the scent of Café de Olla and old records. When I was 20 and wanted to attend a design intensive in New York, Mom said Sophia's influencer retreat was more important. Abuela didn't ask questions. She just handed me an envelope with enough cash for tuition and said, "Build your dreams, mija." Last month, I sat in her kitchen, steam rising from our mugs, and told her everything. "I'm scared, Abuela," I admitted. "This plan could explode in my face." She squeezed my hand, her rings cold against my skin. "You've been creating magic in darkness, Maya. It's time to let the world see your light." But keeping secrets is like building a house of cards in an earthquake zone. The first tremor came when Jenna Walsh, a local lifestyle blogger with a nose for scandal, emailed me, asking about rumors of a mystery wedding at Cascade Gardens. My blood turned to ice. How did she know? I sent a polite no-comment response, but the next day Sophia posted a selfie that made my heart stop. Behind her perfect skin and ring light glow was my setup, the Edison bulbs, the jasmine archway, the whole carefully crafted scene I'd spent weeks perfecting. Her caption read, "Sneak peek at tomorrow's magic, #Sophia, and Diego, #Dream Wedding." The comments section exploded. "Wait, whose setup is that in the back? That background looks way more stunning than the main event. Someone's getting upstaged at their own wedding." My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. "Hey, who's decorating the space next to mine? It's kind of stealing my thunder, lol." I typed back with steady fingers. "Not sure, probably some VIP client. You know how these venues work." But my stomach was doing gymnastics. The media vultures were circling. Unauthorized drones appeared outside Cascade Gardens gates, and Jenna emailed again, bolder this time. "I know it's you, Maya. Let's talk before someone else breaks the story." I met her at a dive bar in Hawthorne, her notebook open, her eyes sharp with journalist hunger. "I'll give you the exclusive," I said. "But you wait until after the wedding. No leaks, no hints. Full access, but only if you play by my rules." She nodded, but I could see her fingers itching to hit publish. Then Sophia's burner account drama exploded. Someone created a fake profile called Sophia Glows and posted a blurry photo of my archway with the caption, "So sad when someone piggybacks off your big day to push their brand. #tacky#wedding, 2023 and..." My team was livid. Isabella stormed into my office, laptop practically smoking. "Let me destroy her, Maya. We'll bury her in receipts." I shook my head, saving the post to a folder labeled Evidence. "Not yet," I said. "We play this my way." But Isabella wasn't finished. "If you don't call Sophia out, I'm telling the whole crew who Operation Spotlight really is." I met her gaze, my voice dropping to a whisper. "You signed an NDA, try me." She backed down, but tension thick enough to cut filled the room. The final straw came 3 days before my wedding. Mom called, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Maya, mi amor, Sophia's having some anxiety about the big day. You know how she gets. Maybe tone down your thing? Skip the fancy archway, the lights, the quartet. People might think your event is the main show." I let the silence stretch, feeling 26 years of being sidelined pulse in my chest. "Mom," I said finally, "my night is going to speak for itself." I hung up, my hands shaking but not from fear. For the first time in my life, I wasn't nodding along. I was ready to roar. 2 days before my wedding, I was adjusting lights at Cascade Gardens when my phone exploded with notifications that made my blood freeze. Our venue's security system had been breached, and someone had tried to leak Operation Spotlight's details to Sophia's PR team. Isabella and I pulled an all-nighter, resetting passwords and building digital fortresses. But at 3 a.m., an anonymous email landed in my inbox. "We know who you are. Stop this charade or we'll destroy you." No signature, just a chill that settled deep in my bones. I forwarded it to my evidence folder, but sleep didn't come that night. The next morning, Jenna showed up at a coffee shop in the Pearl District, her eyes gleaming like she'd struck gold. "I know you're the mystery bride," she said, sliding her phone across the table with a screenshot of my Jasmine archway. "And I'm betting you're Midnight Events mastermind too." I didn't flinch. Instead, I leaned forward. "You want the story of the decade? Wait until tomorrow night. Full access, exclusive quotes, behind-the-scenes everything, but only if you hold off until I say go." She studied me like I was a puzzle she was dying to solve, then nodded. "Deal. But don't screw me over, Maya." My secret weapon was a 5-minute video I'd been crafting for months, a multimedia revelation that would flip the script on everyone who thought they knew me. It chronicled my journey, from dismissed daughter to underground mogul, me at 24, sketching event layouts on napkins in late-night diners, signing Cascade Gardens lease with shaking hands and my life savings, designing pop-up experiences that had Portland's elite begging for invites. I'd layered in testimonials from clients, tech CEOs, artists, even the mayor's daughter, all praising Midnight Events magic without knowing I was the architect. The final frame would reveal my name in bold letters. Maya Rodriguez, founder and CEO. I'd invited 40 women to witness it, former clients, old friends, and others who'd been underestimated, overlooked, or told they weren't enough. They weren't just guests. They were my army. At Sophia's rehearsal dinner, tension was crackling like electricity before a storm. Sophia, radiant in a gold sequined dress, cornered me near the chocolate fountain. "I know you're behind Midnight Events, Maya," she hissed, her influencer smile never wavering. "What is this? Some stunt to hijack my wedding?" I looked into her eyes, half angry, half afraid, and for the first time in our lives, I didn't blink first. "You've always thought I was quiet because I was weak," I said calmly. "I'm just patient. Timing changes everything." Sophia froze like I'd spoken in a language she'd never heard. For the first time, I wasn't her shadow. I was lightning waiting to strike. The drama escalated when I spotted Sophia and Diego arguing outside the venue, their voices cutting through the jazz music drifting from the rehearsal. You care more about your follower count than about us. Diego's hands were up in frustration as Sophia whispered something sharp about brand partnerships and authenticity. He stormed off, and whispers rippled through the crowd of family and friends. Even golden children have cracks, I thought, watching Sophia's perfect facade strain at the edges. The morning of our wedding, Portland Insider dropped a bombshell. Is Midnight Events mystery mogul getting married this weekend? My phone exploded with texts, calls, and DMs. Sophia sent a screenshot with a terse message. This better not turn into a circus, Maya. I didn't respond. Instead, I called Isabella. Time to launch, I said. We tell the truth on my terms, after the ceremony. No one speaks first, not Sophia, not the press, not anyone. Marcus, my fiancé and creative partner, was my anchor through the chaos. That evening, we sat on my apartment balcony, Portland's skyline twinkling below. He'd been quiet, letting me steer this ship, but then he spoke. I want in on the video, not just standing next to you, I want to speak. Why? I asked. He took my hand. Because I'm tired of watching the world erase you. I fell in love with a woman who builds magic, not a shadow. His voice would be the heart of my story, I realized, the witness to my light. Wedding day arrived like the crescendo of a symphony I'd been composing for years. Cascade Gardens was transformed into something between a dream and a declaration, Edison bulbs casting warm gold over wild jasmine, string quartet tuning instruments that would soon sing my truth into the Portland evening. I stood in my thrifted vintage dress, watching the controlled chaos of two celebrations. On the main terrace, Sophia's chandeliers gleamed, and her hired photographers captured every angle. In my garden sanctuary, 40 women who understood what it meant to build in darkness waited for their moment of recognition. The crowd buzzed with confusion and anticipation. Family members kept glancing between the two setups, whispering questions no one could answer. Mom's face was a mask of barely contained panic. Dad clutched his beer like a lifeline, and Sophia moved through her space with the mechanical precision of someone whose perfect day was spinning out of control. Then the music paused, and my screen illuminated against the darkening sky. My voice, steady and strong, filled the air. I used to think staying quiet made me easier to love. I thought shrinking was kindness, that taking up less space meant causing less trouble. Footage rolled me at 22, working 16-hour days to build something extraordinary, signing contracts for events that would define Portland's nightlife, creating moments of magic for clients who never saw my face. Testimonials played, voices praising the genius behind Midnight Events, the mastermind who transforms impossible dreams into reality. Then the revelation, Maya Rodriguez, flashed across the screen in bold letters, followed by founder and CEO, Midnight Events. The crowd gasped, not polite surprise, but the kind of shock that comes when reality tilts on its axis. Marcus appeared on screen, his voice warm with pride. I didn't fall in love with someone who hides. I fell in love with the woman who lights up rooms no one else even knows exist. When the screen faded to black, silence gripped the venue like a held breath. Then Dr. Patricia Williams, a client whose corporate gala I'd designed the year before, stood and began clapping. Another woman joined her, then 10, then 30. It wasn't applause for a performance. It was a recognition, validation, the sound of invisible women finally being seen. Mom's face had gone pale. Dad stared at me like I was a stranger. And Sophia had tears streaming down her perfectly made-up cheeks. Whether they were tears of guilt, pride, or loss, I couldn't tell. But for the first time in our lives, she was looking at me, really seeing me. But the night wasn't over. As my guests settled into their seats for the ceremony, chaos erupted from the main terrace. Vivian Cross, a rival event planner with a reality show and a grudge, stormed into Cascade Gardens with a camera crew in tow. Maya Rodriguez stole my designs, she shrieked, her voice carrying across both wedding spaces. This is fraud. This whole thing is a scam. Her accusation, broadcast live on her social media channels, sent my guests into confused murmurs. I felt my knees weaken, but Isabella appeared at my side like an avenging angel. "We've got this," she whispered, already typing furiously on her phone. Jenna, who'd been documenting everything from the back, stepped forward with her recorder running. "This isn't a wedding," she announced to Vivian's cameras. "This is a revolution." By sunrise, Jenna's article, "The Shadow Who Built Her Own Light," had gone viral 4.2 million views in 12 hours. My inbox flooded with messages from women around the world sharing their own stories of being overlooked, underestimated, and finally finding their voice. #Quiet Revolution was trending, and strangers were calling me the patron saint of invisible daughters. Vivian's stunt backfired spectacularly when Marcus released evidence that she'd actually stolen layouts from my 2022 gallery opening. Social media tore her apart, but she wasn't finished. A week later, she slapped Midnight Events with a $750,000 lawsuit claiming intellectual property theft. My team was shaken, but I wasn't. I'd been underestimated before, and I knew how to turn pressure into diamonds. I announced Events for All, a nonprofit initiative to create magical experiences for communities that couldn't afford them. Quinceañeras for families stretching every dollar, proms for foster kids, celebrations that prove joy doesn't require privilege. Cascade Gardens became our headquarters, a symbol of building others up instead of tearing them down. My family tried to make amends in their own way. Mom framed a photo of Marcus and me, placing it next to Sophia's engagement pictures. Dad offered to sign over Cascade Gardens' deed to me, officially his quiet apology for years of oversight. Sophia texted, "Can I help promote Events for All? My platform could make a real difference." I didn't respond immediately. Their gestures felt genuine, but I needed to see if they had roots, or if they were just reacting to my sudden visibility. Then the game changer arrived, a thick envelope from the United Nations Cultural Exchange Initiative. They'd seen my work, my story, my vision for bringing communities together through celebration. They wanted me as creative director for cultural festivals across 4 continents: Morocco, Thailand, Brazil, and Ghana. 2 years, unlimited budget, a chance to redefine what it means to celebrate human connection on a global stage. Taking the position meant pausing Midnight Events' expansion and leaving Portland, leaving the city where I'd built my secret empire and finally claimed my spotlight. I stood on Cascade Gardens' rooftop, tea steaming in my hands, watching the city hum with life below. Marcus found me there, holding 2 plane tickets to Casablanca. "They're waiting for an answer," he said, his eyes bright with possibility. I thought about that girl who used to shrink herself to fit into other people's expectations, who built magic in the shadows because she thought that's where she belonged. Then I thought about the woman who stood on a stage and finally introduced herself to the world. "Book the flight," I said. Before we left, I wrote one final letter to Abuela Carmen. "You told me quiet people carry storms. Mine isn't for destroying anymore, it's for planting seeds in places where nothing was supposed to grow. I'm choosing myself, finally and completely." As our plane climbed above Portland's lights, I felt something I'd never experienced before. Peace that wasn't stolen, pride that wasn't borrowed, a sense of home that existed entirely within myself. I wasn't Sophia's quiet sister anymore. I wasn't the practical daughter or the one who stays in the background. I was Maya Rodriguez, the woman who built her own sky and learned to dance in her own light. The best part? This story isn't ending. It's just beginning. Because once you realize you were never meant to be invisible, the whole world becomes your stage. Share your story in the comments. Tell me about a time you stepped out of someone else's shadow and into your own light. Subscribe if you believe in the power of quiet revolutions and the magic that happens when we stop asking for permission to shine.